Wiradjuri, Anita Heiss A, Wiradjuri Gilang, Aramajibu Brungley Meagandi Bala Williams, Yindamaladu, Bulga Galangbu, Balaki Bangbu, Balambangbu, Wiradjuri, Nirmbangbu, Yinjamaradu, Yagaragu, Turbagu, Mianjingu, Mangu. The idea of being an author never even crossed my mind. And it really came about when I went to university, and all the books that I got off the shelf about anything to do with Aboriginal people, everything was written by non-Indigenous people. Some of those people had never even been to Australia. I got a book off the shelf and it was uniquely titled Australian Aborigines, and it was written by someone in the UK, and it was based on letters by someone in the new colony of New South Wales who would write, today we did this with the natives and today we did that with the natives. And one day 5 Aboriginal men took this fella hunting and they left him for a short period of time, and they went away and only 4 returned. So he assumed they ate the 5th one and wrote this letter back to the UK saying the natives are cannibals. And based on his one moment in time and his experience, and this that was then written into a history book that I got off the shelf at uni. And I realised that very moment that the recording of history by the colonisers is very, very different to the remembering and the recording of history by the colonised peoples. And so I wrote a book called Sacred Cows to make the point that someone like me is completely socialised, educated and employed in non-Indigenous systems. In 1995, I was in Canada on an overseas program working on Native American newspapers, on the Mohawk newspaper in Ganawage, known as the Eastern Door, and on Windspeaker and Sweetgrass. And it was while I was working on those newspapers, I realised that I wanted to know about and write about how publishing, Indigenous publishing worked in Australia. And so literally the week I was away for 4 months, and literally the week I got off back into Sydney, I started making phone calls. In that same week, I rang the postgraduate office of University of Western Sydney, now WSU. And I remember the phone call vividly. I remember nearly every phone call I made to the postgraduate office, because every time I rang there during my degree, I felt like they knew who I was. They spoke to me like I was someone that they knew intimately, that they wanted to help and so forth. I'll never forget that, because just that first experience of me, that first point of call, that first piece of communication set the tone for my entire experience of going to Western Sydney University. I'm a lifetime ambassador of the Indigenous Literacy Foundation, which is an across-industry philanthropic model for increasing literacy in Indigenous communities, particularly in the Northern Territories. And I believe that every single Australian child, regardless of where they live or who they are, should have equal access to books, and particularly to the resources they need to learn. We take for granted every day the access that we have to resources, but in our classrooms, in our school libraries, at the universities and local libraries and so forth. Most remote communities don't have a local library, homes do not have books, and classrooms are stocked with books that are outdated, antiquated, irrelevant to the kids that they're meant to be reading them. I'm very passionate about, first of all, the need to have literacy to make decisions in our lives, but I want all Australian kids to be able to read beautiful picture books, to be able to read stories that transport them to other galaxies and other nations and other countries. Because if you can't read and write, then you can't make the decisions that you need to make on a daily basis. For those of you thinking about tertiary education, please speak to your careers advisors, reach out. There are so many people on campus at Western Sydney University who will be happy to answer your questions, whether it's in the student area, student support area, or whether it's about university life or academic life. Please make the phone call, because that is what changed my life, making that one phone call.